In August, I arrived at Barcelona airport in Spain. There I boarded a bus and went to the center of Barcelona, and then with the next bus to a small town in the Mediterranean called Roses. I stayed at a hotel at night because before starting the hike I needed to buy some small things and food for the hike. Early in the morning in the dark I took a taxi from the hotel in Roses to Cap de Creus in the Mediterranean, which was the start or end point of the GR11, depending on which direction GR11 trail goes. The ride with taxi took about an hour and cost 60 euros, including tip. Already in the morning, the first visitors had gathered at Cap de Creus, mostly couples waiting for the sunrise or photography enthusiasts. I was the only GR11 hiker. Considering that I failed last year's attempt to walk the GR11 trail from Atlantic Ocean to the Mediterranean Sea, this year I changed my approach and also the direction in which I planned to walk the trail. I also decided to go during the season, leaving on August 23. I had almost 40 days to cross the Pyrenees and get from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic Ocean. On the first day, the plan was to walk the first kilometers from the Mediterranean to at least Lianca, at best to Villamaniscle or even the Sant Quirze de Colera monastery. I had planned to stay in a tent for the next 2 days. The third night was probably at a hotel in La Jonquera. However, the first difficulties arose on the first day: the heat. The weather forecast promised plus 36 degrees Celsius and some kind of red warning because of this, which it is advisable not to stay outdoors and definitely not to do any outdoor activities. It probably also includes walking fast with a huge backpack along the trails. But anyway, I didn't have a backup plan, so I started the trail early in the morning. The decision to leave very early was based on the forecasted air temperature and the hope of covering at least the first few kilometers before the expected heat wave. This time I didn't have a 25 kilo backpack, but the bag still weighed around 20 kilograms. The main reason for this was the fact that there were huge problems with drinking water on this section of the trail. In reality, during the hike, it was necessary to carry at least 4 liters of water, which of course was very heavy. In addition, the previous evening I had stuffed my backpack with food bought at the local store. I don't understand why, because there were several settlements in the first section of the trail, and saving the weight of the bag by not taking an unnecessary amount of food would be self-evident. As a result, the bag weighed a lot again. However, this time its design was designed to carry even several times more weight, and this gave me hope that the set goal would be achieved. The second circumstance that came as a revelation was that the trail to Port de la Selva is not actually flat, and you still have to climb both downhill and then up, and that reduced my planned speed. By looking down at Port de la Selva from the mountain, I realized that I would have to cross the mountains in the distance today. I managed to get a little lost again. It reminded me of last year's GR11 hike, when I got lost several times pretty badly. I was glad that despite the heat and the big backpack, I managed to make it within the planned time. In addition, I even managed to save about 40 minutes on the short stage, consuming a lot of my body's energy reserves. To cool down, I bought ice cream and Coca-Cola at the local store. I couldn't find a normal place to have breakfast, because, as in the beach recreation area, breakfast cost about 30 euros, and it was well above my budget. As I had thought, I had to climb the highest mountain in the middle of the day, when it was 37 degrees outside. Even the local Spaniards, who were used to the heat, thought it was a bit crazy. But I, person from the cool northeastern Europe, decided to ignore their advice. I also had not lost my determination to go as far as I could, despite the heat. I must admit that the climb to Saint-Pierre-de-Rhodes was one of the most difficult in my life due to the terrible heat. I hoped that there would be a water on the top, but there was none. The spring water was not drinkable. It had a bluish color and smelled funny. Even with the time saving, climbing up the mountain did not go as well as hoped. Even if I managed to save 10 minutes, the rest afterwards took 20, and the achieved result melted like ice cream in the sun. However, lying down in the shade of the cool walls helped me cool down perfectly. There were 7 kilometers left to Ljanka. There should be a shop and also water. The signpost showed 2 hours 10 minutes. I was hoping to get there in 1.5 hours. The climb down to Ljanka was almost vertical, and with the big heavy backpack it was difficult. In the distance you could see that after Ljanka the road again leads over the next mountain range. A Spanish hiker I met on the way said that there was not a drop of water in the place where I had planned to spend the night. Everything had dried up. Meanwhile, the next goal was at least 5-hour walk away. I realized that then I would have to walk in the dark for several hours. I bought water, cola and ice cream at the store, which I ate right there at the store, sitting down at a table at the entrance to the store. I didn't get rest there for long, because a very pretty smiling Spanish girl with a tray in her hands informed me that these chairs and tables at the entrance to the store were actually a bar. So I continued on. The trail continued up the gravel road. The walking here was significantly easier. After a while, there was an indication on the signpost that it was 30 minutes to San Silvestre de Valleta. The river where I planned to spend the night had indeed dried up. A very nice place to stay at this lovely church. The church was built in the 10th, 12th century. There also should have been a spring a little further from the church, but everything was dry. But there was still a good place to stay with a tent. Shortly before dark, about 20 cars drove up to the church. They were ringing bells, singing songs, and probably a party. Or was it some kind of church service or something?